So in terms of Chief Bowden, how do you say thank you to someone who has been a part of the Bucksport town family for nearly 40 years? Someone who has brought hundreds of thousands of dollars in grant funding to the community for personnel and equipment. Someone who has spent 18 years of that time as a leader of a group of men and women who excel in their efforts to keep the people of Bucksport safe in fire, illness, and injury. Someone who has made a career out of risking their life to save others. What words would be adequate to express our gratitude? After a lot of thought, I believe that the best and highest honor that we can pay to you is to take this great department, built on a strong and solid foundation, and move it forward to the next level. The best legacy you can leave is a department that is ready and able to embrace the challenges of the future, and you have done that. Thank you. For you that they tell me is in transit. This is it. It's a flame. And it says, Chief Craig Bowden, Bucksport Fire Department, with gratitude for 39 years of service to the town of Bucksport. And we also have a certificate. The Bucksport Town Council hereby recognizes Chief Craig Bowden for 39 years of service to the town of Bucksport. Your leadership, dedication, and commitment are your legacy to the community. Thank you. We have a presentation by our poet laureate, Pat Ranzoni, for you after this. But I also want to take a moment to recognize Kareem and his family. In any job where you're always one tone away from a life-threatening situation, it is crucial to have the support of someone at home who understands your need to be that go-to person in emergencies. So Kareem, please accept these flowers as a small token of our thanks to you for sharing Craig with us, supporting him in his work, and raising more firefighters.
Braver than brave, what you gave. Fire, fire, to sound the alarm, to chase fire, the killer, the destroyer, every day, everywhere, in and out of town, to knock it down, to face the burn, fierce, run it off, day or night, to be ready, to answer the call, to surround and drown, to defy the smoke, to choke, to draw breath that others might breathe, to pry and chop, heave and lift, to strain, to climb, to rescue, to carry the pain, to live that others might live. When cursive flames flared in your eyes, you stood up to the heat, threat, fight, hell, laying down every tool and skill for the children, your neighbors, your strangers, your brothers and sisters, us, who will, because of this, forever thank and honor you beyond knowing how to show you, bowing to the power and the glory for how you fought and how you won.
1-hour speech. But for some reason, there seems to be quite a crowd here, so you must have a pretty good agenda. So I'll try to make it short and sweet. As Sue mentioned, you can't do this job without family support. Having the right friends in place, having a good crew, and having the support of the citizens has really, really meant a lot. And the current council and town manager have gone overboard to make sure our people are protected and have good equipment. And I just want to say thank you to you folks and thank you to everybody out there. So appreciate the thoughts and thank you very much. It was very nice.
Thanks, Greg. So, item 4, and Pat, thank you. That was beautiful. Thank you. That was very nice. Thanks. Item 4, consider minutes of previous meetings. We have meetings from 3/9/17, 3/23/17, 3/30/17, 4/13/17, 5/11/17, 4/11/19, Town Council workshop meetings from 4/18/19, and regulatory review committee minutes from 4/11/19. Just so we're aware, Kathy was trying to put all of these back ones that weren't there. That's why we have some from 17. Part of the stuff she's going to be doing is getting all these old minutes up so we can get those online and stuff. So,
Motion approved. Second.
we have a motion and a second to approve. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 5, receive and review correspondence and documents. First, the police call to Verona. Was that police call to Verona, or was that actually to Orland, wasn't it? Was that the Trade Winds one? I think it was the Trade Winds one I was reading. Is that the one?
We've had a few in the
Yeah.
last few weeks.
Yeah. Okay. Any questions on any of that we've got there?
Nice job.
There has been a few.
Yeah, there's been a few.
Down East Transportation March ridership report. Again, it's our weekly or monthly report, rather, for March. Again, shows great ridership, and it's paying for itself several times over. So, we have a Life Flight thank you letter and a thank you from Kathy Downs for recognition that we had for her the other night. So, any questions on any of that? Item 6, ordinances to consider and introduce. We have a first reading for Article 4, weight limits and restrictions, first reading for council rule updates, and a first reading for proposed charter change. Regulatory review?
Mm-hmm.
Anything on any of those? Or?
No. I mean, Jeff, were you going to talk on them? We just
First reading.
yeah.
Sure.
This is for change to Chapter 10, Section 10-402. The changes involve correcting outdated street names and making it clear that trucks that are within the state limits can haul to or from a residential property in Bucksport. That wasn't there previously. The bonding requirements are eliminated, and language is added to make it clear that a truck registered within state weight limits can haul to and from a pit in the town of Bucksport. And in a similar way, vehicles that are part of a business in Bucksport can travel without that weight restriction in the town of Bucksport.
And the second one was council rules.
Council rules. Yep.
And that was
The council rules, the proposed changes were to add a notification to the media in the event of special meetings, which our rules did not require before, to require that all meetings have a quorum in order to hold the meeting. Prior to this, there was a provision that allowed for meetings of less than a quorum to be held under certain circumstances. Since no action can be taken, there was really no point in having that provision. This changes a temporary chair selected from time to time, to instead create a deputy chair position that's elected annually at the same time the chair position is, and on those same circumstances, so that at the beginning of each year there's a chair and then a stated deputy at that time in case the chair is absent. The third one adds a provision that discusses that any change in the scheduling of an item for council action requires a unanimous vote of the council in order to put that forward. And the last one is a change to the rules to state that missing more than 5 regular meetings can be grounds for loss of office, as a change from the current of 3 consecutive meetings. And those are the proposed council rule changes. And in order for the council rule change in regard to the 5 regular meetings being considered, it would require a charter change to be voted on in November in order to change that provision of the charter so that the charter and the rules would be consistent.
The only other 2 things we had, Peter, was a woman came and gave a presentation on, not really a presentation, but a preliminary presentation on synthetic pesticides, which she's going to bring more later, and you brought up changing the minimum parking size spaces.
Which we had asked to go to the planning board for their agenda.
Great. Anything from the council? Discussion items, regulatory review, I assume we just covered everything in that?
Yeah.
Infrastructure committee update?
The infrastructure committee met this evening. I'm filling in for the chair in regards to a request for an extension up in Woodland Heights for a landowner who abuts, has property on the Spruce Street side. Paul, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the committee's desire at this time is that we have an opinion from an attorney from the Maine Municipal Association who pretty much states that in order for this landowner to have to build a driveway off of what is the Forest Hill extension where a private driveway exists now, that there really should be a supporting legal opinion before the town takes or considers such action. And where this has come to light fairly recently, the Infrastructure Committee is proposing that we do just that.
Okay.
And so, and it also appeared at the end of that meeting that the 2 property owners are going to be talking as well, so it may resolve itself.
Okay. Anything else for that? Great. Item 8, agenda items. We don't have any
Okay,
approvals.
we opened the bids for the Nason parking lot, but they're still being reviewed and that we're not ready for a decision on them.
Item 9, resignations and appointments. We have none. 10, approval of quick claims or any deeds. We don't have any of those. 11, town manager report.
Congratulations to Chief Sean Gagan for receiving the Service to Youth Award from the Down East Family YMCA at their annual awards dinner on April 24th. Congratulations also go to Community and Economic Development Director Rich Rotella, who won a YMCA Volunteer of the Year award, and RSU 25 students Madison Clifford and Carter Talmasok, who won Student Volunteer Awards. It was a wonderful evening. The Y did a tremendous job of honoring them all. We are fortunate to have such caring and committed people in our community, and our partnership with the Y is providing benefits for the community as well. I have included a copy of the introduction for Chief Gagan done by Nick Tomasco. It was, to say the least, an inspiring speech, and I have copies of it if anyone wishes to have one. I'm pleased to report that the town dock and the marina floats will be going into the water on Wednesday, May 1st. The marina is scheduled to open on May 15th. Today was the last day of work for our part-time assessing assistant, Priscilla Stover. She helped Jeff Fitzgerald with the 2-year revaluation process. She did a great job, and we will miss her smiling presence in the office, but she is no longer working here. Balancing Act 2 is an anthology of poems by 50 Maine women, which was published in 2018. And featured in that work is our very own Poet Laureate, Patricia Smith Ranzoni. And in a review of the book by Agnes Bushnell in the Cafe Review, Pat is singled out for a special note in the that the reviewer stated that since Kate Kennedy's introduction invites us to dive in any which way, I went directly to Patricia Smith Ranzoni's selections, where I was pretty sure I would find a touchstone, and did. While the poems in this book are characterized overall by technical competence and in some cases brilliance, care, and thoughtfulness, Ranzoni's 7 Loons in an Evening Trim is transcendent. It's not just a 25-line tour de force of music and syntax comprising a conceit. The depths that loons dive become a figure of this exclamation. Daughters, how well you've learned how to pass your mothers, how not to drown. It's one of Ranzoni's many poems that sound deep in the underused non-rational faculties. This poem took the top off my head. The whole book is worth this one poem. That is our poet laureate. And this reviewer is right. Before I had read this review, Pat did me the honor of bringing me a signed copy of the book, and her poems are nothing short of amazing. I suggest you all get a copy. On a less positive note, former Mayor David Keene had a serious fall at his home this past week. He is currently in the hospital and is expected to make a full recovery, but will require some significant healing first, months of healing. David gave of himself to this community his whole life, and I encourage everyone to take a minute and send him a note of good wishes for a speedy recovery. Thank you.
And again, congratulations to Pat, Rich, and Sean. We've got some really good folks out here doing good stuff, and it's nice to get recognized for all that stuff. So thank you again, folks. Yes.
Mayor, you said the docks and floats. I haven't been out by Silver Lake. Are those being put in as well? Or are
They went in today.
Outstanding.
Again, we got some good people doing some good stuff.
Good stuff.
Someone knew there was a council meeting tonight.
I know, there's been a lot there.
No, they met, the votes met them there.
Yeah.
True story.
Really.
All right, public hearings, approval of licenses. We have a holding tank permit. There was a lot of paperwork I didn't understand on that, so I'm going to need some help.
Jeff?
So I can't recall the last time I actually had one of these, maybe never, but this is a form that's required by the state when somebody's requesting to put a holding tank in as a replacement system. And so this is a property on Jacob Up Pond where we do allow holding tanks for replacement systems. But it requires not only the plumbing inspector's approval, the municipal officers also have to approve that. So there's a form that you have in front of you that has 3 signature lines, so only 3 of you need to sign that document. All the other requirements have been fulfilled.
I guess that was everything's been met, so we're good to go.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
thank you.
I didn't know we could have a holding tank.
Any questions? And Sue will have one coming around.
Well, the problem is they only gave us 3 lines to sign on, so I've
That's all we
added a
needed was-
couple.
That's all we needed was 3.
Yeah, okay,
That's
who
what,
wants
that's
to
what Jeff said.
Just
Said
3 is
just-
fine.
Just send it this
pick
way.
3, any 3? Okay.
Do we have to have a motion for that?
Do you need a motion for that approval?
It probably wouldn't hurt.
Motion approved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the holding permit. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes. Item 13, discussion items not on the agenda. We'll start with the public first. Any discussion items that are not on the agenda anybody wants to talk about? We do have some budget stuff coming up here in a little bit that I'm sure people will get to. But anything else that anybody wants to talk about? No? Anything from the council?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Yes.
I'd just like to point out to the council that maybe this got lost in the shuffle of papers, but it's always good to review this Appendix 1, which is the 82 community-generated actions. And on here, that many people spent a lot of time going through these 82, giving them preferences. These all come direct from the public, and that was they were, I think, put together by Main Street. So I'm just reminding you of this to take a look at it, and maybe we can put it on the agenda.
Heart and soul.
I'm sorry?
It was Heart and Soul.
Heart and Soul, sorry.
Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
thank you,
That's
Heart
okay.
and Soul. I stand corrected, so we might want to take a look at these maybe at the next meeting, put it on the agenda.
Anything else from the council? 14's upcoming committee assignments. So we have infrastructure we want to assign.
We're gonna be able to do
I'm trying to think of why it said infrastructure. There's a topic. Right now it escapes me.
Want to set it for 6:30 or 6?
6:30.
6:30?
Yes,
Infrastructure for 6:30 on May 9th?
May 9th.
is it the paint stuff?
Paint in this building? Is that one? I'm sorry, I don't mean to add to the.
No, I'm drawing a blank, looking like an idiot. Perfect on the night of your performance review. So you can remember that subject that you're supposed to.
Mayor, can I have mine back?
If you're anything like me on your drive home, it'll be crystal clear to you what you.
We're gonna get an email there.
Then you'll get an email. That's exactly what will happen. It will.
So what we'll do is we'll set infrastructure for 6:30 on the
Yes, that's fine.
and hopefully we'll have a topic.
It will have a topic.
Next item, we'll go into budget review. First up, you have to get anything ready up there. General government.
General government comprises a whole lot of things. It's administration and planning and assessing and economic development and insurance and benefits and the municipal building. And that all of those sub-accounts are under the heading of.
What one should we look at first?
We're going across on what we have for budgets. We have general government, then we have economic development. I think of the way order they were
You're
in or not.
going to start with administration.
Okay,
Administration is the first one.
Okay.
perfect.
It says general government at the top.
Right.
That's the administration one.
Like we've done in the past, anybody have any questions, concerns?
This budget is the front office budget and me. It's down slightly. I made some adjustments to some line items that, as it had been suggested, we're not seeing expenditure levels that may have, so I went through those and changed ones that needed to be changed. Otherwise, there's very little. There's a 1.5% decline in this budget this year. Personnel changed in the clerk's position, changed that, but otherwise it's pretty consistent. We made some changes in the election clerk's line item that weren't necessary. Changed the manager's expenses somewhat. Those went down in terms of the amount budgeted for cell phone was higher than what I actually am reimbursed for cell phone usage, so that line item came down. Telephone went up. I've itemized in there what our actual bills are, and that also includes our internet. So that is, when we went to voice over internet, we had to retain some copper lines in the building for the event that we lost others. And then our tax lien costs are reduced because in looking at how many liens we're placing fewer liens than we used to, which is a good problem to have. So that's positive news. We're placing fewer tax liens. So this is administration.
Under legal cost, where do we stand? I guess where do we stand with the walkway?
Thus far, we're waiting for the court to determine whether or not that case will be dismissed.
Okay.
Everything that needs to be submitted has been submitted. I've had one freedom of access request from Mr. Green's attorney since that but that has been fulfilled.
So it's still in the court system then?
Still in the court system.
Okay. Any questions on administration from anybody? Anybody in the audience have any administration? Next up is the municipal planning. This deals with code enforcement. Any questions on this from anybody? Looks like it's basically a salary increase is the only increase that's really in there. Any questions from the public on this? Next up is the assessor's office. And again, pretty flat budget other than a increase in salary.
Salary is the only change, and the amount that was, you had appropriated $40,000 for the revaluation, which was the amount paid to Priscilla Stover over the 2 years that she worked for that, and that funding ended in her employment, but that was taken out of fund balance.
It's a different one, right?
You did not take that out of.
Any question on the assessor's office? Next up is municipal building. I think we've got some information on this here for the custodian especially.
Yes, I do. I had 2 applications for custodian for full-time, and I had 1 application for cleaning, from a cleaning service here in Bucksport that does banks and some other facilities, but who put forward a proposal that would do this building, the public safety building, and the senior center, and the accumulated cost is slightly higher than what we had budgeted for wages for all 3. However, it's substantially less than it would be if I hired someone and as a full-time employee and had to pay benefits. The total cost for the 3 facilities cleaning for the year is $22,800, and that's, I think, extremely reasonable for.
And is this a 1-year contract and we're renewing?
Well, there's not a contract. My proposal is that we do this on a trial basis and see if this works out well, and then if so, then.
And they're local?
Yeah, they're from Bucksport.
And that's cleaning the same buildings that
They
we've
have-
cleaned in the past?
That's right.
Okay.
And it also, they're insured. They have their own.
We're not buying any equipment, material.
They're insured for all of their workers' comp, unemployment, blah, 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 all those kind of things, and there's no benefit attached other than what's paid on a weekly basis. And so considering where minimum wage has gone, finding a full-time position that puts you above that, we're already over what this contract would be without considering benefits. So that's what's budgeted here, is the amount that it would cost for this building for cleaning.
Any questions on municipal building? Yes, sir.
Been a reduction in the electrical of $43. Does that reflect the new lighting, or is that anything to do with the array of solar?
The solar array, that reflects a little more real-world experience with our lighting. The solar array, we haven't had long enough for me to see exactly where that's going. In addition to it, now that we have more sunlight, we'll see more output from that over the winter, which has only started it. There wasn't enough generated to go beyond the highway garage account in terms of, there are 9 accounts that it cascades across. The highway one is the first one. And through the winter, there was not enough to completely cover that one. So as we move forward, if we see that it's starting to cover more, then I'll be able to bring it down. The other thing that happens is that although we're not paying Central Maine, we do pay a fee to Revision because they're the ones that install the equipment. based on kilowatt hours generated to that to them. And there's a net savings, but it's not as dramatic as it will be when the sewer treatment plant system comes online, because there'll be no payback to any third party for that. That will be totally owned by the town from day one.
So at this point, we still won't have any criteria as to what it's doing for us, or what we plan on doing?
Well, I've had 2 months of data, Jim, since Central Maine finally got us the accurate readings, and so I'm reluctant to base an estimate on 2 months worth of real data until we get a little more to that's why.
Any other questions on the municipal building stuff? Next is insurance and benefits.
Before anyone has a heart attack.
Yes, thank you. I already had one.
I think you probably all should have or would have. It's a combination of things in this line item, and none of them are. I wish I had a better answer, other than people change coverages when their life situations change, and there was a significant amount of that in the last year. And we also added 2 fire positions that are partially reimbursed that were not in last year's budget, and those are the next figure. On the bright side, the discussion is ongoing before the next insurance season, that we have an option available which provides coverage for employees which is comparable but in a different way, through the use of an HRA and established to pay co-pays and deductible, and a higher deductible plan. The net result is the same. The goal is to provide good coverage for our employees, but there are ways to do that in which the town's dollars are better spent on paying for care than they are for paying for premium. And right now we're paying a premium for premium, and if the employees still have the coverage, still have their health care covered in the same way it is now, but there's a way to do that more economically for the town. It's also more economical for the employee because their contribution goes down as well. So that's the plan for moving into this. I have not budgeted for it to be implemented because we have unions that have to agree to these changes, but they've all agreed to this discussion. So I am confident that good information gets good results, and we have waited for a couple of years to see if the insurance industry and environment was going to ever calm down, and it appears that it isn't. So rather than wait any longer, we need to move forward with looking at a plan that provides a different way of coverage. There are a number of communities who have already transitioned to this model successfully.
Because a 22% increase is a large
and it's an artificial, because of the fact that when someone goes from single to married, you know, that's
I have a question also, and how much on an average do we pay per person? Just I don't know how many.
This 709,000.
we
Are
have
we talking 25,000 or?
we have 2 plans. One is only available to union members. That's now called Allegiant. It was Northern New England Benefit Trust. This was negotiated back in 2014 before I came. There was it was negotiated that this would be the program offered to union employees, and that they would pay a flat rate toward that as long as the Northern New England didn't go up in their premiums more than 8% a year. That was That was what was established. And those rates range from $800 or so for single to a month to $2,200 for family, and the employees pay a share of that. New employees since 2015 in the union pay 20% of the cost. Those who were in it prior to, at the time of signing, are on that flat rate fee schedule. The other plan that the town has is the Maine Municipal Point of Service 200 plan, and that is what's available to everybody else who's not in the union, and that single ranges from $900 to $2,400 a month, about, for that, with some offset by.
I mean, the only reason I say that, and I used $1,500 a month. So for 5 employees, that's $90,000 a year. If we offered an incentive, and a lot of places do it. Where I work offers $4,500 a year, plus you get $500 on a Benny card. We have a Benny card that is free money. They give us $2,200 a year. So if I don't take it and I'm on my wife's, I get $4,500 in my check, a buyout. So in even doing that, I used $5,000. That's $65,000. 5 people do it. That's $65,000 a year that you save. The town saves, even though we're giving someone free money. I mean, it's because they're not taking our insurance.
Many places, and I did this in Hamden before we went to the HRA, is that we incorporated in our personnel policy an incentive, which was 50%. They was paid in wages to offset, but what that meant was, for a $24,000 plan, you just saved the town $12,000 by doing it, and that was 50% went in as wages. It saved the town a good deal of money, and it allowed people to buy into their spouse's plans.
Yeah, I mean,
so that's another provision that we can look at adding to our personnel policy if you decide that you wish to. There may be some people who have other options for health care. We do need to make sure that everyone has health care. That we can't allow people to opt out without a replacement. That becomes a workers' comp.
Sure. No, and that's not what I meant. I mean,
no,
we actually have to prove that we
right.
have insurance.
Yeah.
But I mean, you get 20 employees to do that. I mean, we're up over $200,000, and that 700 is now down around 5, and it looks a lot better.
We can certainly put out a survey and ask employees that have our insurance if a buyout were available. Would you be to see what kind of participation we might get before you go through the changing your ordinance? But that's a pretty common practice in many organizations.
I know the whole city of Brewer changed over to this HRA, and
so did Hamden.
They've saved so much money. Like I said, they give every employee that's on it gets.
Well, what happens is they're paying you have a higher deductible, but the money that Brewer is spending is paying for health care,
right,
not premiums, and that's the difference. If you're going to expend money for something, expend it for something that's real in somebody's life, as opposed to statistics show that if every person in the United States had a $1,000 debit card, that for 92% of the population that would be sufficient.
For the year.
The usage of healthcare is, when we did it in Hamden, we I budgeted 75,000 into an HRA to pay copays and was scared because there was if you did the math, about 7,000 times, it was a much bigger number. But the people we contracted with said it won't exceed 50, and it's been in the low 40s every year in terms of what's used for those copays, and it reduced the employees' contributions so that they could use what they had formerly been, the difference, the 4 or 5%, they put into their 401 instead of, it was their money, instead of using it as to pay for insurance, it was like getting a raise. So there are, we had unions there too. They agreed to the provision.
So something we can look at then.
Well, I give the example that in 2015 I had my right hip replaced, and at the time Hampton had the Cadillac of insurance through Maine Municipal, so my total out of pocket was $1,000. They then switched to a $3,500 deductible. They paid 90% of that deductible, and so the employee was left with 10% of the cost of, and the total out of pocket for a year was $350 for a single individual. So under the best plan that the town paid $900 a month for, I paid $1,000. Out of the one that they paid $623 a month for, I would have had to pay $350. That's how this can work if it's set up so that.
Well, I think I think we have to look at it then.
Well, I'm just saying that there are, because we're not trained to think about health insurance. We think about the more expensive the premium, the better you get it, right? But that's not the goal. The goal is that you have access and that your bills are paid. But that's what people care about.
Right.
So at the end of the day, how that transpires isn't as important as the fact that it transpires. And so that's the...
Especially if we're going to go up 22%, who knows what next year it could be another 20%.
Well, because of the difficulty in what happens in people's lives, up, down,
flat.
that it's hard to...
Right.
And the more people you have, the harder it is because their situations change. So, yes, but that's an on button for this coming year in terms of what we're looking at.
Anything with insurance and benefits? Anything else? Anything
I think it's
from-
certainly worth looking at. I don't work in the insurance industry, but I work in the healthcare industry, dealing with insurance companies, and yeah, there are ways to. The example you provided is a great one, and just I don't want to go on and on about healthcare, but there's so much money being wasted on healthcare that the healthcare economy, the United States healthcare economy, is the 6th largest economy in the world. The fraud in the U.S. healthcare that's known about is the 20th largest economy in the world. The waste and fraud. Just some numbers to ponder. As you don't quote me, those numbers are a couple years old, but just ponder for a moment that in the top 10 economies in the world, the United States healthcare alone is there, and the fraud and the waste is in the top 20. So, if there are ways that even in our little corner of the world we can do a little bit better at spending money on that, then I'm all for it.
And that's what this is really about, is targeting. If you have a high deductible and a lower premium, and the checks that are written to medical providers for providing care, that's a better expenditure of $1 from here than paying a premium. That's a personal opinion, but I feel strongly about.
Economic development.
Things here are pretty much the same until you get to line 94, which is the $48,000. That's when we talked about social agencies and non-municipal funding last year in our policy, we decided that we were going to look at them in terms of the work being done. And you talked last week about those who more clearly fell into the social agencies, you know, the food banks and the homeless shelters and all those kind of things. And the items that are identified individually under the budget on, this is just the face page on the back, the show, and they're here tonight to speak to you about their programs and what they're requesting and why they feel they fit into this economic development.
Before we get into
Schedule.
that, is there anything on the regular top line before we get to 94 on economic development? Again, I believe that's just a pay raise, and that's the only thing that's in there, so.
Yep.
94, and I'll just go down through the way they're listed here. Did you have 43,000 or 48,000?
It's 48.
Okay.
There was a typo and it was mine.
Okay, so Main Street Bucksport, I assume, is at 20.
It's the 50, is 20,
Okay.
yes.
Main Street Bucksport, is anybody here from Main Street Bucksport? Do you have anything to say, or? wanna-
Oh, yeah. We missed this year. I actually wrote it out in a major copy, only because I've done a couple of legislative testimonies lately, and they press upon me to make 20 copies. I was in the mood, so. And I'll try to follow that. I didn't proofread either, so. Thanks. Well, first of all, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you about Main Street Bucksport. My name is Ron Russell, and I'm here tonight as a member of the Main Street Board. And also, I'm a taxpayer here in Bucksport, new taxpayer. And I'm here to update you on the progress we've made in meeting our mission over the past year and to ask for the town's continued financial support. In late 2014, around the time of the mill closure, Main Street Bucksport was formed and slowly began its work. I guess I got a little typo there. We are a 501c3 nonprofit comprised of a board of directors, a part-time executive director, and scores of volunteers. The mission of Main Street Bucksport is to promote a vibrant downtown Bucksport by supporting existing businesses, attracting new businesses, and supporting cultural arts events and other quality of life public activities. 2018 was a very successful year for Main Street Bucksport. We had a budget of approximately $60,000, with a third of those funds coming from event income and fundraising, a third from grants, and a third from direct financial support from the town. We continue to host and grow 3 large events: Bridge the Gap, a road race that gained in numbers this year. We reached the recent race that was held this month. We had 650 registrations, which was our capacity, and we had 600 runners. We did a survey after the race from downtown businesses, and we showed increases, or at least those businesses told us, from the same year-over-year Saturday from the year before, 20 to 40% increases over that same Saturday. Again, we sponsored and ran the Waterfront Arts Festival that enjoyed good weather during the whole festival and increased vendors and crowds, and the International Marine Film Festival at the Alamo, which also enjoyed large increases from previous festivals. In addition to these events, MSB held numerous smaller, equally successful free events in downtown Bucksport. Among those was Kids on Main, a Saturday reading hour that spanned 9 weeks over the summer, where children enjoyed colorful, enthusiastic readers. In fact, we had more readers than we had weeks. An ice cream and a free book that was donated by literacy volunteers. This event was supported by numerous local businesses and a corporate and individual donor. It attracted nearly 500 children over the 9 weeks and half as many parents. The second Friday of every month business coffee hour continued to be a success and well attended. An expanded community cleanup day was held last year with support from the entire middle school. That's planned again this year. The Buck Doesn't Stop Here lecture series was held at the high school and at the Alamo. $10 on the 10th was something that we did last year where we encouraged people on the 10th of each month to come in and spend $10, and many businesses offered specials. We had a waterfront public cider press, and we did some other events. Many of these events met some of the 84 heart and soul community goals that were mentioned earlier by David. Specifically, Kids on Main, Cleanup Day, a street art mural that was part of the Arts Festival, and we've this year worked on a start to help finding in-kind help to update Rufus Guggen's Park. We have a graduate of Bucksport High School who's an acclaimed landscape architect, Matt Cunningham. I don't know if you know him, but we've been in touch with Matt, and hopefully he's going to help us out. This year there'll be even more events. Brooke has written and submitted a grant for the Historical Society's Museum in the Streets project, and with Rich's input, she also wrote a grant to build a bocce court and low-impact playground, and this grant also would help us develop plans for an amphitheater on the mill end of the Riverwalk. This grant is actually for the benefit of the town, and I think the town's the one that would carry forward on this project if the grant is received. She is also working with the Garden Club to bring more benches to Main Street. This year we are working on a downtown brochure where 10 local businesses has agreed to fund it. Kids on Main will continue with a new twist this year. We're collaborating with Wednesdays on Main for a selected readings event that will have local authors reading their pieces from Pat Ranzoni's Still Mill at the Alamo during the Bay Festival. We have met with the Friends of Fort Knox to cross-coordinate their very extensive event schedule, and we're looking for ways to bring patrons to each other during our events and their events. Flash in the Pan, the Peninsula Steel Drum Band, will be coming to the waterfront for a street dance on July 29th. And it's been a while since I've been to one of their events, but they bring quite a crowd, so something to look forward to. And on July 18th, we'll throw a 300th birthday party for Jonathan Buck, and it's open to all. Brooke posted it on Facebook, and already 600 people have responded to that post, and 11,000 have viewed the notice. We're really only getting started, but the bottom line from last year was we hosted events attended by over 6,300 people in downtown Bucksport with the help of numerous volunteers that donated 1,400 volunteer hours. And as a final note, I would tell you, this is sort of a personal note, I would tell you that one of the biggest reasons that I decided to make an investment in Bucksport was because of the holistic approach the town council and employees of Bucksport, representing all the citizens and taxpayers, have taken to move forward with Bucksport's development. With the work of the council and employees, Sue and Rich, and the insistence and financial support you have afforded groups like Main Street Bucksport, I have great faith that my investment will turn out to be a wise one, despite its turning out to be a very expensive one, much more than I thought. Jeff's very excited about that, and I think it's good for the tax base, and hopefully it'll work out as I planned. But I'll finish with this. Brooke recently talked with Nate Gandy from MMA about their project. He was very enthusiastic and positive about the town and all the work that they're doing. If he had any concern at all, she said, it was that these professional men and women who will be coming to this town need choices for places to unwind and get together after their training. We're getting there, but we have work to do. These folks are a golden opportunity for us to spread the excitement really across the world, because these people are out there in rigs all around the world and jobs all around the world. To see what has been building in this community. And I'll tell you, from my long business career and experience, this certainly seems like the time, not the time, to slow the momentum and put on the brakes for all the work that's being done. So I thank you, and if you have any questions, I'd be glad to entertain them.
Question from the council, just so everybody understands the process, and should have mentioned it last week. We had the social agencies in here last week. We're not going to make any decision on any funding for any of those agencies until next council meeting, the 9th. That's what we've done in the past. We'll get all the information. And then, like I told them, we have a limited pool of money.
I understand that.
For $150,000 worth of requests, we have about half that money. So I just throw that out to everybody, and that's where we're at. So, any questions from the council?
I think if you hadn't done anything, you have done a lot more than this, but if you didn't do anything other than the Buck Doesn't Stop Here lecture series, it was just fantastic. I got so much good feedback from parents and from students who really, not just the ones who went out into the world, and there were plenty of those that came back and talked, but those who stayed here just as well and built a career and a life here in Bucksport. And I think it was just very well received by the public and by the students, and I hope you're going to do it again.
The other thing I would sort of point out would be that economic development helps solve some of the other problems. Not to take away from the well-meaning groups that need support, and my advice would be support all of them if you can. But if the town does develop itself and become a place to live and work for even more people, then the town will progress, its income will increase, and people will enjoy more employment, and some of those problems will go away. So I can say, for sure in business, when you're on the upswing, you don't go backwards. You plow straight ahead.
What do you folks get for money from businesses?
I'm trying to think that from businesses.
I mean,
know
looking at this, about a third of your money comes from the town.
Right, a third comes from the town, a third came from grants, and a third came from the income from the events themselves. Because the big events, we have vendors that pay a fee.
Right.
The race, they pay a fee, and at the International Film Festival, they pay a fee. We also did fundraisers that were attended by citizens, both from the town and not from the town, and business owners. And we raised from those events about $4,000.
My question is, being for economic development and trying to help out the businesses, what are they giving? What skin do they have in the game for this?
Well, I think that some of them have given individually, so I would say that. They've supported some of the events. And, of course, there's another group in town which they pay a membership fee. We don't have a membership fee.
And do you guys cross-pollinate at all? Do you do the same thing?
Yeah, we've worked on some things together. I mean, for sure. We both participate in Next, and that's been a good forum for, what's happening, and I think we've found some projects we can work together. But sort of what I would say, one analogy I might make would be, let's take economic development as the way it's done in the town. There's a committee which I go to. You're there, Peter. In fact, I thought the last meeting was one of the better meetings I've ever been to. But the committee itself is volunteer. And then the town, in its infinite wisdom, has Rich, which is a paid position. Now, if the town decided that a way to save funds was to take Rich's position to a volunteer, I would tell you that probably the effectiveness of economic development, as Rich and Sue and all of you are practicing it, would not be as successful as it is. And that kind of works the same in nonprofits. I mean, you need an organization that works much the same way. And that's why I think that it's not, you can get a business to come, like Whole Oceans, to come and create some jobs. But unless you also develop the plan or develop the town as a place where people want to live and enjoy themselves and work, And especially in the current environment, I would say that is money well spent, because malls are closing, okay, which means people, and part of that reason is Amazon and places like that. They're buying things online. But people are retreating to their towns and their neighborhoods. And so specialty shopping is living. It's not, you know, a small store can survive. And a town is an entertainment center. People don't drive off to the movies as much as they used to. So the more of that you can do, the more, if you look at a Belfast or a town that's developed itself as a place that's enjoyable to spend in the downtown and work and entertain, you know, yourself and your family, that's going to be a more successful town. So I think the two-pronged approach to economic development is a very wise one, to use groups that are filling in that gap. I mean, Rich and Sue can't do that. You know, and I think if you tried to expand Rich's office, frankly, it would cost you more.
Thanks. Any other questions?
Sure.
How much money do you currently have in your budget? Do you have a fund that you have right now?
I'd have to look. John Paul's the treasurer. So.
You're asking what our bank
What you currently have?
I think it's
I would guess it's
Ballpark?
probably less than $20,000. Somewhere between $15,000 and $20,000.
Do you see yourself being self-sustaining at all in the future?
I think what can happen is if a town, you know, approaches this the way this town has, which as far as I can see is the right way to approach it, that they spend a little money, get some outside groups to do a lot of work, the town develops, say like a Belfast. And as it develops, it has a more thriving business community. Okay, it has a more thriving residential community. And then, you know, there are other funding sources that happen. But in the beginning, it's probably realistically going to happen, because the number of volunteers overlap in many of these organizations. I mean, many of the people that did Heart and Soul work with Main Street Bucksport. Many of the people that go to Next are in all the groups. I mean, so this core group is trying to, you know, work for the town. I mean, for me, it's I retired and I was busy. I did lots of this stuff. So you can't just turn it off. I'm sure Craig, if he sees something burning, he's going to get out of the truck.
It's sort of, I guess, like Councilor Ormsby's question is, since 2014, has the membership, I know you don't charge a fee, but, or to be members, but has that grown? Because you keep saying, well, the same people that are in the Next or, you know, in all these organizations, they're all the same. Or I say they overlap.
There's some overlap, absolutely.
Okay, well, I totally understand that, but this is a group that's asking for $20,000,
right.
Unlike the other groups that we overlap. Is the membership growing?
Well, I don't know that that's the way that I would look at it. Is the impact or, you know, the benefit to the town growing? I would say absolutely. Just in the fact that two of the things that I read off were, you know, the Main Street Bucksport worked to get a grant for the town. Now, if Main Street Bucksport had not done that, then Rich would have to do it, I guess, or Sue more likely would have to do it. So this is an addendum, and I don't know the amount of that grant. Do you know, John Paul? Or Sue? $25,000.
And the town couldn't apply for it.
The town couldn't apply for
It was a parameter.
So I guess what I would say is if I invested $20,000 and I got a return of a check for $25,000 and something on the waterfront, and she also worked to apply for a grant for, what was the other group?
Historical Society.
The Historical Society, I don't know the size of that grant, but the Museum in the Streets, $9,500. So I don't know if it'll get those grants or not, but if those grants are done, and even the grants that Main Street Bucksport got last year were used for the benefit of the town, which was $20,000. So I guess what I'm saying is the choice for you is there a return on investment? I would say there is. Another analogy I could give you is we as dealerships, and it's somewhat of analogous, but we joined these things called 20 groups. They're put on by NADA, National Auto Dealers Association, and approximately 20 dealers of like size throughout the country would join a group, and they would meet 3 or 4 times a year, and they would pay a fee in for that, and they would get together and they would swap all their financial data, and you know these people, you're in them for years, and you know them, and the NADA provides a moderator which comes from your fee, and you get there and you learn all kinds of things about how to better your business. Well, the alternative would be do it yourself, contract with a bunch of outside consultants, which would cost you way more money. And so the return on that smaller investment comes back, in spades. I mean, it's just, and so that's the way, if I was a counselor, that's the way I would look at it.
Thank you. Anything else from the council?
Mr. Mayor. Frugality is a wonderful sounding word, but we can frugal ourselves right into bad positions in this town, I think. I remember when the mill first closed, Dave Keenan and I went over and talked to the mayor of Belfast, and he says, there's going to be a large push not to spend any money. But at this particular time, you're going to have to spend some money. And we did, and it showed tremendous results in this town, I think. So I don't want, as long as I'm on the council, the banner call to be only frugality, which is not a bad thing, but it's the growth of the community, the supporting the stuff we have, helping that grow, is what young people with children are looking for in the community. They're not looking for the Bucksport in the past. They're looking to the Bucksport now and the Bucksport of the future. So I think if we're going to invest anything in anything, this should take a very high priority in our minds.
Thank you.
And our actions.
Anything from the public?
What happens to Main Street if you don't get the money?
Well,
I mean, our model will change. I think we'll continue, but it would be a tougher road. I mean, it's some of the board of directors would have to step up and probably do more active fundraising and try to get it. But somebody asked the question about how much do the businesses do? Well, businesses in this town are, they're not.
They're hurting.
Yeah, they are. And so I don't know that what I would like to see from them is Kids on Main is the perfect example, because the library pitched in some, Larry pitched in some, Colleen and Mike pitched in some. And some of it was help, some of it was a little of this, some of it was a little of that, but it all came to a pretty pleasant hour that was spent on 9 Saturdays, and kids got a chance to get a book. And I can tell you that some of those kids look like they don't get lots of books.
Which is the other group that was here last week that we got to try to help too.
Right, exactly. But our point is to bring people to downtown, make it a place to come, so that the Bridge the Gap was another good example. We did it on a Sunday last year. Nobody was open. It didn't make any sense. We did it this year on a Saturday, and the town was pretty alive. And I helped park the cars down at the mill, and people went in and out of businesses and spent money and came from everywhere, and it was well organized and well run. And
okay.
How many paid people do you have?
We have a part-time executive director who's scheduled for 20 hours a week, and last year her time sheets showed she spent about 30 hours a week. And she doesn't even count some of it, which is writing grants for other organizations and stuff. So,
Sean Paul, do you have something? And we got to move on here pretty quick.
No, I'll just be quick. Because I think it goes along with what Ron said and what the questions were asked. You know, if you're looking at this as an investment, I sat all day Tuesday at a Maine Community Foundation grant review process. We reviewed, what was it, 54 grants. Handful of them were from Bucksport. I find it very interesting going through those processes of what we look at. And one of the things we always look at is what, particularly when it's a grant specifically for something that the town maybe could not invest in. And how did the town invest in this? Should we be giving them money? And I'll tell you, Bucksport, time and time again, got a lot of compliments for the investment that they were making in their town and what they've done. And Maine Community Foundation has given a lot of money to Bucksport in the last 4 or 5 years. And they're very happy with what they're seeing happening, and so they feel it's a good investment. I think the council is happy with the investments that they made, and should look at this as another investment. And before the May 9th meeting, I'll get you numbers, because I think the return on investment that we've gotten back in grant money, that have been grants that have specifically been written by Brooke, either for Main Street or for other programs in town. I'll get you those numbers.
Thank you.
And they're pretty impressive.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I have one thing to say on that I have some information here. The money the town is spending to support the work of Main Street Bucksport has a high return on investment. In 2018, we received $19,000 in grant funding, which practically matches the $20,000 received in public funding. We also raised an additional $19,000 in fundraising events. That's a 2-to-1 return on the public investment, and much of that money is coming from outside this community, both from private foundation and grant funders and for people who attend our events.
Thank you.
That's a pretty good return.
Anything else on that? Next on the list is Chamber of Commerce. Anybody hear from that?
Hello, everybody. I'm so short behind this podium. Thank you for letting us be here tonight to speak to you. Yep, find my blue sheets. So, first I just want to thank you, Peter, because last year when I came before you, you asked for us to have some really hard numbers. And that was a really interesting exercise for me, because honestly we had never really sat down and did that in that way. So that's what this spreadsheet reflects. And it was very eye-opening in the sense of we really multiply the money that we're given in a very different way. We're not a 501c3, we're a 501c6, so grants don't come to us. So we have to make our money in lots more creative ways. So the $9,000 that we asked from you guys, we take that and we spread it across all the things that we do. And so we listed out all those things on the sheet to give you a sense of what that money does. And it was kind of neat, and to me, as I went through this, to just see how many people it potentially impacts. Sure, in some of those attendance and use numbers, some of those are overlapped people, obviously. I'm sure some of the people that come to Bay Festival also come to Gosport, that also come to the farmers market. But, I don't have a way to do that. But the fact that 158,000 people either interacted with us in some way, potentially, it's an amazing number to me. And as you can see, the asterisk numbers are actually estimate numbers, because we don't take tickets, right? But the other numbers are hard numbers. Those are numbers that either are physically someone bought a ticket, like at our annual awards ceremony, which takes place here in town, or they came in, we put out an invoice because they came in and used the copier, and things like that. So it's just kind of neat. The other thing was, it made me really look at paid hours to volunteer hours. Those paid hours is 3,798 paid hours. is what you get from Alicia and I. And even at minimum wage, that's a darn good deal. It's well worth over $9,000. Because we are both part-time, though, we don't have benefits or things like that, but it's all good. Our volunteer hours, I think I underestimated my volunteer hours after hearing Main Street's number, because I only came up with 620, and I know we got a lot of volunteers, so apparently I shortchanged us, which is fine. Weird things like the website views. Our website, 133,000 website views. That's amazing. That, to me, is amazing. So hopefully this helps show you guys, some of the things we do. I think, I think there's a lot of folks in town that don't realize who is responsible for the things that happen. You earlier said that that Main Street was something that Heart and Soul did. I think that happens a lot. I think, you guys talked about overlap. Well, yeah, there's some overlap, but there's also, that's the only way we can fill the schedule is by having multiple groups, right? Because there's no overlap on the same day. It's overlap in different ways. So I think that's neat. I also wanted to point out, although Paul Rabs is no longer on the council, he had made a point to talk about, well, your membership, how does it break down? So I broke it down. 58% of our members are from Bucksport, right? Only 10%, and that's your next highest, is Orland, and then it just drops down to 2 to 4% or lower. The 24% at the bottom is all those communities where I have a member in them. So I also think it's neat how far our membership reaches. Our membership, we have members in Bar Harbor and in Portland, and those are members that came to us. I don't have a membership committee, really, and I certainly don't have an employee to go find members. The fact that they reach out and find us is pretty phenomenal. In the past 6 years, we went from 134 members to 207 was our high. Right now, we're at 187, or 183, I think. I'd have to look again. But, and obviously some of that number adjustment is literally, people got a business, things happen. But it's pretty neat. I'm impressed by that myself. Like I said, until I had to sit down and do this, so I thank you, Peter, because I needed that. I also put in here for you guys, just so you can see it and know, actually our membership works brochure that every new member gets to see what it is that our chamber does. We are different. We are events driven, which is how this chamber operates. We don't have enough members to sustain us by ourselves. I mean, our budget, which this year, you guys have the budget, and I forgot to bring it with me, is I think right around 100,000. That's membership and events, and we get 9,000 from you guys out of that 100. So it's kind of something to think about there. Of course, you do ask for money for Bay Festival, as you know, but Natalie will come up and pitch for that one. So that's
what's your capital campaign?
Our capital campaign, right. So after we moved from the building next door to the building next door to that, we are under promissory to purchase that building from the State Grange is our game plan, or at least we're hoping. And then I also included the blueprint. Louis and Mom was so very gracious as to do that for us, and because we want to make it a community space as well. It's an intimate stage space.
So how long is your capital campaign run for?
Well, August 1st is when we're supposed to have our money.
And how much do you have?
6,000 right now. 6,000 right now.
6,000 out of 90?
Yeah. Yep. Right now. Okay. It's true. We're working on it. We kind of, you know how it is with volunteers. So I've got 4. Now it's 4 because somebody was in Florida and now they're back. 4 really good committee members that I think will really move forward on it now. And we really just started to get our wheels underneath us on it as well. Sending out the letters. We did an open house where folks got to come and comment on, because we had 2 different blueprints up, and let them comment and decide which ones they liked better. And that's how we came to this particular blueprint. It was actually a combination of the 2. We had lots of input on that. That was really nice. And we've had people come in already and ask about renting the space, and it's like, well, it's not ready yet, and we have to raise the money. Do you have some?
And if you don't get in there, get it by August 1st, what happens?
Well, I mean, we can always go back to the state Grange and potentially, have an extension of that time period, and I think they would, I feel they would do that with us if need be, or find some other way, I don't know how viable it would be for us to like get a conventional loan because, we're a nonprofit. It's not like we don't have a profit to show to get a loan with, but there are things available, I'm sure.
Okay.
We have a plan B, it's just plan A would be nicer.
Anything from the council?
To ask the same question Dan asked, you see yourself being self-sustaining?
That is always the question. Honestly, and I was happy to hear that question. We were really on track to almost be there. And then we had 2 years that kind of stumbled us. I was squirreling away money. That was real. And then honestly, the first year was the big Bayfest celebration. We spent a lot of money on that. And that took away some of my little nest that I had, pulled that out. And then the move, when we moved from this location to the next location, it was a big hit. It took the rest of it away, pretty much. So, and it's increased, some of my bottom line in general, utilities and things that I didn't budget for that the year before because I didn't know it was going to happen, right? So it just kind of hit us. But that's always been my goal. I want it to be that way. I mean, that's, right?
Sure.
I mean, that would be the best. I think we'll always come before you for money for Bay Festival. But the chamber itself, yeah, I would love it to be completely self-sustaining.
Anything else?
That is my goal.
Is that an increase from last year?
No,
It's the
not
same as last
same,
year.
same as last year,
But
yeah.
why did you break the coordinator position down? It went from 10 to 5.
Right. Essentially, because thanks to Shelby, she really organized the Bay Festival in a way that I kept ideally imagining but never could make happen, which was to make each section a little bit more self-run with a champion that says, I'm going to do this part, and so the coordination job is a little less, and it doesn't require quite as many hours. Although I'm sure Natalie will totally work more hours than she bargained for. Sorry.
Anything else? Anything from the public? Thank you.
Thank you.
Bucksport Bay Festival.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Natalie Aruda, and I am here as the coordinator for this year's Bucksport Bay Festival. This is going to be the 22nd annual Bay Festival. I have before me our information. If anybody wanted to see, we've got the packets that we've set out for sponsorship, and we also have a report of the economic impact on several of the local businesses. We've sent out a survey, and the ones that responded about how their business that Saturday and that weekend compared with an average weekend in the summertime. So.
Could you send that to Sue, please, so she could send it out to us? Or I don't think we have it. Can you see that?
Was that provided as?
Well, it had come before the council when Shelby had come and done the review.
Okay, but when you submitted the request for funding, it wasn't in there?
No, it wasn't.
Okay.
It was just the budget in there.
All right.
Yeah. So I wasn't sure. Can't blame Natalie for that one. That's me.
Oh, Ken.
No.
We can blame whoever we want. Whether it's right.
So the Bucksport Bay Festival has, this is going to be the 22nd. It's going to be the weekend of July 19th, 20th, and 21st. The festival is the leading fundraiser for the Bucksport Bay Area Chamber of Commerce and attracts between 3,000 and 5,000 people to Bucksport each July. The success of the festival makes it possible for us to support our membership in the chamber throughout the year. by supporting the Chamber's programs and events, this supports the economic development of Bucksport, being a desirable, safe, and fun place to live and work. There's the well-maintained waterfront, our organized facilities and social events, and so we're bolstering the economic development, supporting local businesses and organizations, and supporting them in turn brings benefits to the area like employment opportunities, economic stability, and then they turn around and support organizations and events that are happening in Bucksport. So it's a great circle of support. And so this is going to cover the fireworks, the well-loved fireworks show, and entertainment at the festival.
Any questions? Any questions from the public?
Headline act is going to be Motor Booty Affair.
They were just at the Cross Center for the Sheriff's Association.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Would anybody like to see any of the should I send up a package with the sponsorship request so you can have that?
Please. Wednesday on Main.
Hi, I'm Paula Key, and I'm the Wednesday on Main person. So this year, you've probably noticed we're asking for an extra $1,000, and that has come about because in December, I gathered my volunteers and angels and people that have helped me for 4 years straight to sort of brainstorm about how we can improve and do better to go forward. And the most important thing that came out of that is that there are people in this town who will not come to Wednesday on Main events because there's a sign that says suggested donation. And they just don't go there for whatever reason, because they can't afford it and feel uncomfortable not being able to give the amount that's suggested. And we think it's really important that everyone be able to come to Wednesday on Main. So I've increased my budget request, and we've made several more events free to the public. And like the Frogtown Mountain Puppeteers, that's normally been just a small amount, $5, but I don't want to keep anybody away from them. So that's going to be a free event. So that's part of the reason why that is the main reason that I've increased my request. And we've got a fabulous event schedule this year. We're partnering with Main Street Bucksport and the Chamber for the Sunday after or Sunday of the Bay Festival weekend to do a reading of Pat Ranzoni's Still Mill book, and Stuart Kestenbaum, one of Maine's poet laureates, is going to join us. We've invited the governor. Sue will be one of our opening speakers. It's an important event. I think that we should all acknowledge that this is the year when everything's changing. The mill property is not going to be the mill property anymore, and we need to honor and hold dear all that meant to this community for 80 years. So we're very excited about that. We've applied for grants for that, so that's really not in my budget to speak of. But if there are any questions that I can answer, please feel free.
I want to note that while there's a $4,000 request this year, prior to this, the $3,000 that Main Street, that Wednesdays on Main used this past year was based on an approval by the council in 2015. That was the last time that they utilized funds. There was an approval for $3,000 that was never expended. And so that approval carried forward, and it wasn't until the 2018 season that they utilized that, and this is the first request for funding that you've seen in 4 years.
Should be back in 2023.
2023? Well, I don't know about that.
The
other thing,
how much do you get from Darlings?
Darlings has contributed $7,000 for 4 years. This will be the 4th year.
Are they doing that again this year also?
They did this year, and I also would note that I've reduced my budget for this year by $4,000 because last year was too big and it was a lot of pressure to generate the money we needed to make that happen. So I scaled it back a bit. You know, things change. This year's going to be our 5th year. The event format is exactly the same, which eliminates funding for me because you have to offer something new and different to funders. But Darlings has been there for 4 years. It's been our 4th year, I think, right, Ron?
Yeah, we gave 10,000 the first year. Pretty sure.
Oh, right, yes, you did. So, but they've been supporting us for 4 years, and the first year the town gave us $5,000, and Maine Community Foundation gave us $5,000. So everybody believed in what Wednesday on Main was about, and it's just been a wonderful thing. So that's where we're at.
Thank you. Anything else from the council?
Do you take a salary for this, and where is it?
No, as we all know, you would be the first to know if I had a salary. So
Anything
thank
from the
you all
public?
so much.
All
Any
set.
questions?
Thank you.
When do you start?
June 19th is our first evening, and that's the Frogtown Mountain Puppeteers at the Alamo. And so come. They are a riot. They're great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Friends of Fort Knox, over here.
I don't know.
Friends of Fort Knox, anybody here for that? All right.
It was advised that that's been a contribution that the town has made annually to the Friends of Fort Knox. And I can't remember the reason, but there was an agreement between the town and that organization back when the former director was.
Chief. Do you have something, Chief? You're just stretching.
It runs the lights.
Right.
Right.
In the off-season and PennDOT one day.
All right. Next we have up is sewer, I believe. Oh, we're not done.
Oh, I thought we were done.
Other non-tax funded appropriations. This account is funded from, well,
Strictly from user fees.
it's funded from sewer fees. The users pay for the privilege of funding this.
Cut off the end of that again.
Oh, that's too bad.
Here we are.
Any questions on the sewer budget, or?
The sewer budget is higher than last year. It's based on the fact that our contract changed last year with Maine Water. If you remember, we added another person. Otherwise, we have a more realistic. I'm sorry, it's lower. We have a more realistic idea of our electric cost. This is not the right year. Hold on.
It's up
Let me
slightly.
find the right thing here.
Not
I mean,
bad,
in
though.
last year, so hold on. In a minute, I'm going to teach my computer how to swim. Just saying.
It looks like a $2,000 increase.
Yes.
I kind of wanted to see it swim.
Just make sure I'm
I
down
would
low.
be happy. Yeah, this is the 1819 that, and then proposed. That's it, right there. That's the one. Can make it a little bit bigger. But if you look at the electric cost, that is down slightly over what it is, and that doesn't factor in if we build a solar field. This is just, it's broken down in the background of what it's supposed to be. The line items that are increases are requested increases by Maine Water, who manages the plant for us, in terms of what the needs are in those line items for soda ash and chemicals and all the things that it takes to run it. I spoke about it briefly at a council meeting, that we're going to do with sludge, and what's going to happen to that is still an unanswered question because of the PFAS. The EPA released today regulations that are going to be implemented nationwide in regard to PFAS contamination in groundwater and others. So it originates from sludge. So if we haven't gotten the results back on our testing yet to know what, if any, issues we have in this regard. So that's a to be continued story, but this budget contains employee benefits in it because this is paid for by sewer users, unlike the other budgets, which all have all of their benefits under one account. But I'm happy to answer
Any questions?
I just assume, Sue, you're hanging around the electricity costs until the field goes in.
Yeah, we're in a stop work order status right now.
Yep.
Questions from the public on this?
But the good news is there's not a need for a rate increase this
Right,
year.
perfect, right.
So
That's what we're
that is
talking
That's awesome.
well, considering that the last rate increase you had was in 2015,
15,
that's
yeah.
4 years. That's a long time in the utility world to go, especially since you added on this. So
All right,
some
Bethany.
additional users are what's helping.
And some more hopefully coming.
Yeah.
Revenues is the
Yep.
last item in the budget.
Is this an increase?
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Well, that's a good thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
It looks like the biggest increase is just from Maine, the state itself,
Yes,
from revenue sharing.
Revenue sharing, that extra 0.5% gives us an additional $75,000. Excise tax, we budgeted 800. We're going to come in close to 850 by year end. We'll budget 840 for the coming year. That's 40,000 in additional revenue. I did budget 400,000 from fund balance instead of 350,000. We will turn back to fund balance close to $300,000 at the end of this year, so that the net impact will be a $100,000 reduction, but it's still a very healthy balance and gets us through this year to next year, when we will have a different valuation pattern.
End of the river might look different.
What's that?
The beginning of the town might look a little different when you pull in.
On the Spofford funds,
The Spofford funds are funds that we have a dedicated pot of money that was given to the town for the purpose of, it helps offset good general assistance related kind of requests.
I notice you have in there giving it to community concerns. That would be above and beyond the request that they asked for, or not?
No, that would help offset the cost of. That's under the TIF. Are you looking at TIF or Spofford?
I'm looking at Spofford. It says to fund
Yeah.
Bucksville community concerns.
That offsets that. We have also used money from the Spofford Fund in the past for people who were indigent that needed glasses or those kind of things.
So that's one that we keep funded, sort of that amount. I can't remember seeing it, but that's sort of that same
Yeah,
thing.
that's what we've done.
Okay.
Last year you added another 1,000 because they got flooded out.
Sure,
but
sure.
That fund has been in existence for quite some time. the Spofford
30
Fund.
Oh, the Spofford, it's
Yeah. That goes, yeah.
Any questions on revenues?
old.
Can you just talk to the school designated surplus, where we are on that,
Yes.
and why that line item is where it is?
What are we doing and where
Yep,
did it come
please.
from?
Yep.
The last year's 268,000 and change was an appropriated amount. When we received our school bill for the year, then the school got some more money. And it changed, we had money left over in the line item at the end of the year as a result. And so rather than throwing that into fund balance, we carried it forward as what we call school designated surplus to offset. We had raised it for the purpose of education. It was education. We carried it forward. We also have about $400,000 in an education designated fund that was the result of the school consolidation. And I'm proposing to use $100,000 of that to help offset this year's budget, and that pretty close to offsets the increase in the school's proposed funding. That's what that is.
Have we seen numbers from the superintendent yet?
Yes, I have. And the initial 118 or 19 is now down to less than 100.
You're still in
The
concern.
school is they're still in their process, but the school is seeing nearly $500,000 more in education funding this year, which is what is driving our increase. The local share requirement this year is lower than it was last year, according to statute, and the school is getting more in revenue. And so even though they've had to have significant increases due to contractual changes to better fund teachers, to be perfectly honest, the net impact to the town is lower than it would have been if it were not for that extra money that's going to education.
Any other questions on revenues? Anything from the public? What I would ask the council is please, before May 9th, look at the budget. We will finalize the numbers
And at the next meeting, you'll get your annual PowerPoint that breaks it all down into what it looks like. But you'll also get I've been keeping a cheat sheet on, as you've reviewed these, on questions that you had or things you wanted more explanation, so we can go through those. But I can also show you what the overall impact is, what everything costs, that kind of thing.
and that's everything from, like we've talked about, from fuel to these requests to everything else, so we're talking.
And there'll be a sheet for you to look at in terms of your outside donations. You've seen where they belong now in the budget by department and how that impacts their work.
So I'd just ask everybody to review what we've talked about, and if you've taken your own notes, kind of come prepared to to be able to put that stuff in.
Well, you just said the outside agencies. Yeah, we've seen them in here, and you're going to give us a separate sheet with a
fill in the blank.
Well, right, but also with what we spend or what we can spend.
There's a bottom number. Yeah.
Okay.
The number
That's
that your policy
73,
creates,
right?
the number that your policy creates from tax dollars.
Right.
You use TIF for some, you use Spofford for some. The amount of tax dollars to fund the list is the number that is driven by as 1% of the tax commitment for last year.
So like I said, I just ask everybody to be prepared to take a look at that, and we'll have everything there. So, any other question on revenues?
I don't have any on this, but she had brought up the school and their budget. When is that being presented?
Next. 60, no, the 20. It's on
They're pretty close to the end.
Usually you vote on the budget meeting.
Budget meeting is the 29th.
29, thank you. Yeah.
I know because I have to be there.
Yeah. All right. right, at this time, if we have nothing else there, I'm going to entertain a motion to go into executive session pursuant to MRSA Title 1, Section 405, 6A. We're going to do performance evaluation on the town manager.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to go into executive session. All those in favor? Opposed? We will not be taking any action after this, so.
I hope not.